Hello, and we're here with the snow, and I hope you enjoyed my little drawing of the Iceman and Snowman cometh. But basically, that's about what I was seeing here. And it started earlier, obviously, and I do apologize. I should have put this up in October, but it's been a bit brutal with time for me. And here we are. We're going into, actually, this is not, even though you're experiencing snowstorms and incoming really bad weather coming in here this weekend. I'm filming today on the 28th and of December, but I hate to say it, that's nothing to what's going to come in. So let's move on, and these are going to be very short videos touching on everything as I'm doing the world as well, most of the world. Anyway, here we go. So basically what I'm seeing is, even though you're going to see there's one on the 2nd of January, and that comes in from this place here from up north and sweeps in, but it actually has a devastating effect here, but it's not the worst storm, I'm afraid. You're going to get a total of probably 17 blizzards, I hate to say it, across north, and it's northern America, and it's not even northeast or west. It's mostly obviously east, but it's hitting, the worst of it is hitting around there. And even though there's a secondary level, which, sorry to say, is at this level, it goes as far down here and hitting even a tertiary level, which is coming down to LA, Arizona, New Mexico, Texas. So there's 3 levels of storms that are going to be coming in. Now, as I said, the first 2 is coming about the 2nd or 3rd, but the rest are really coming in towards the middle of January to the end of January. And these are rolling storms. There's one that's kind of three could be even classified as 4 storms, one after the other, and it really hits heavily here. It has an effect obviously here, but it's really about a cold front coming in with rain, by the way. One storm's with I think the beginning one is with freezing rain, so be careful, and it's really going to roll. And we are, as I said, is that we're going to hit new record lows, more or less equal from last year, but quite frankly, later on at the end, in February rather, you're going to see the records breaking again into a lower freezing. So it's going to be constant here from mid-January, and that will last until about the 19th to the 22nd to the 25th, trailing with 1 or 2 storms. Then in February, we're going to see, it's kind of a weird thing. It's as if you have a brief respite and it starts up around about the 5th through the 8th. It starts up again, and those are the ones that are going to bring in heavy, heavy snow drifts, snow layers, and 12 to 14 feet from here. I'm going to cover Canada later, but basically it's going to be pretty brutal. There's going to be a lot more I can't remember it, in the polar vortexes coming in, and it's going to come in from there and really hit below there. So we're going to see extreme colds. Needless to say, Michigan, all the lakes are going to freeze over. Toronto is actually going to be pretty brutalized in that whole area, because the water seems to have given it a more of a colder wind, just like in England. It goes right through you. So be careful. Pneumonia, flu, all of that, but pneumonia is what I'm worried about. But that's going to happen. We're going to continue through March, and March round about, there's going to be from the 2nd and 3rd, and then there's 2 or 3 storms there, but it's really one storm just rolling. And then March 13th through the 18th, it's going to be 2 to 3 again, but they're going to be exceptional. It's as if even lightning comes in on that one, electrical storms coming in, and the cold weather doesn't really, how can I say this? There are going to be minor as well, by the way, minor storms, blizzards, which are going to hit here in the Midwest, around here as well. And Texas is going to see quite a bit more snow than they ever did. Las Vegas on the hills, but in the outer skirts as well. Utah, Oregon will, and that portion here is going to see a lot. Needless to say, we're going to see a lot more storms in the hills. LA might even see a brief snowstorm, and even up north here might be a few. So it is changing, I'm afraid. Okay, so that'll continue. And the last snow, I'm not talking about Yellowstone because of the high elevations. That's going to be even in end of July, August. You're going to see snow there on the mountaintops. But basically, the last real snow you're going to see is in roundabout again May 31st, maybe as much as June 2nd or 3rd. All right, so hopefully, I know I'm going in brief now. I don't know if anybody really is interested. I know a few of my followers and clients are listening because they use that to navigate and to make sure they plan their trips. Anyway, best of luck, keep safe. But I would like to add one last note. Because these storms are so brutal in their low level of cold and extreme cold, if you have the heart to look at people around you who are alone, mostly the elderly, and see if they've got enough blankets, heat, safe heaters, please. But food, if they can't go out, just make sure if you could just give them a meal or two, or send them or take them, because don't forget them. There's going to be a few that aren't going to make it because they're too proud to even tell anybody that they haven't got food, and they can't even go out because they're disabled or not fully enabled to. So please think of those, and the homeless, which is very dear to my heart. But please just remember those who are unfortunate, not as lucky as you. Okay, thank you for joining me on this one. This video is going to be covered for flooding, since it's part of snow, and needless to say, you're going to get melting snow, but let's go on beyond that as well. And that is that you're going to start seeing floods happen in February as well, because it's, even though it's still frozen, they're going to be releasing. But basically, there are going to be mudslides. There's going to be more rain at the end of February, roundabout Malibu and Santa Monica, Santa Barbara, roundabout there. Not so much Santa Barbara, but Santa Monica, and you're going to see a lot of the mudslides and flooding there. And I believe I was correct last year, I don't know. But also anything from the fires haven't really taken, the new brush hasn't taken in, so you're going to see flooding, mostly around Los Angeles and down towards Ensenada and things like that, Sandy. Not so much in San Diego as much as in between Ensenada and a few of the other places, Oceanside. But it's more inland, okay? So here we go. It's really the flooding. You're going to get some flooding in the in Colorado, Denver, and some of from the mountains in there. Portland, there's a tiny bit, not too much. I'm not going to go in every state, but basically I'm covered the big ones. But the flooding in from the Mississippi and everything else, that's going to be pretty bad this year. It'll go to about 35 feet over the designated, I wouldn't say record breaking, because I think record breaking was about this year. which is 2019, but it will be very high and it'll go over, I'm sorry to say, the flood stage, and it will crest the river. So, and other rivers too, I'm afraid, will suffer the same consequences of melting snow. Then we've got Texas. There's going to be, even though it's more rain than melting snow on this one, and the flooding, actually there's going to be some brutal storms, and this is really connected with tornado activity, heavy rain, but I'll cover tornadoes in another one. But for this flooding, I'm sorry to say that there's a lot in Austin, Dallas and all this area here, and it could be a swell of a hurricane that's coming in as well. But there's going to be several times that they're going to see flooding, and then it's going to come in from March is not as bad, but it's at the end of May, June, July, August, where the torrential rain is really, it's as if it's monsoons, it's been that bad. But they are going to suffer quite a bit of flooding there, I'm afraid. Okay, and again, I'll talk about hurricanes another time, because quite frankly, there's flooding in this peninsula around here as well, and even in central New York, Staten Island, in there, and that's connected with a hurricane. And same here, but we'll talk about that on the tornado video. Thank you. Water spouts. This one I had said mainly off the Carolinas coast, tip of Miami, and yes, there were 3 to 5 of them. Off the coast of Houston, yes, there was. So, and in California as well. So all of those came in as well, South Carolina. So for water spouts, I am seeing, they're off the coast, but I do see 2 off LA, but interestingly in New York there are 1 or 2 here, and there are going to be about as much as 17 in different areas around the peninsula of Florida, and 3 major ones off South Carolina tipping into North Carolina. Okay. We're covering tornadoes in this video, and we have been seeing or experiencing lower levels in the last few years of tornadoes in the way of the intensity, not the 5s or 4s. There have been 4s, but quite frankly in the States it's been more on the low level ones, EFC 0 to 1, 2 really. But what we're seeing is a lot more of grouping and cells, combined cells, and we are going to see far more where it's not on the corridor, as I always said, it's spreading more right, but now it's spreading more left into the West Coast, and I am seeing even tornadoes come into more Wyoming and South Dakota, Nebraska. So that is going to be, there's going to be a really strong cell which is going anything from 0 to maybe a possible touch on EF4, touching ground, but it'll be around about here, and that would be around about end of January or middle to end of January, and it's doing a swath around about there. So really it's traveling and kind of gutting it. It sounds a long place, but quite frankly the storm system is that way. But when it develops into the more disastrous tornadoes, it's round about this area here. So that's when you'll start seeing it touching ground, going back up, going through, and there's going to be quite, no, it's about 21, not 21 miles, but basically it's going to be quite large when it touches down and cuts a route, sorry to say, through that. And actually that one I'm seeing, I apologize, is in July. That one that's very aggressive, and it kind of goes like this. Sorry. It's kind of going like that, way. Okay, so basically, but there's a system that's going to drop at least 7 to 10, could be as much as 12, in around about mid-January, and that's coming in. And that's more or less these areas here. But they're going to be spotted, and even for some reason it's not going to be as bad in the January and February, but when it comes to June through September, you're going to see the heavier, more disastrous tornadoes come in. There is a possibility in F5, but really, to be honest, it's more of an H5 than, a hurricane hitting level 5 there, but we'll talk about that in a minute. But it's really, let's stick with tornadoes. And Dallas, there's going to be quite a few here in that area. And Austin also. The storm systems seem to be far more electrically charged, and I said that last year, but it's far more intense, and that's why the downpours, and you're getting a lot of hail, large hail balls, and also kind of the electrical storms are just, it's upping it. So be careful and try and remember to go indoors, not stay outside and watch it, or for God's sake, don't start taking selfies and videotaping it. Do it safely inside somewhere, okay? So basically this whole area, even Colorado, tornadoes, there's tornadoes about 2 in Las Vegas, but not downtown, but they're very, very low level out, just outside. Portland will see it, Seattle up around about there, really not in Seattle. Really, it's kind of weird, even one in San Diego. Phoenix will see about 2 or 3, and that's associated, which is weird, with a dust storm, near like a turboob, but about there. And New Mexico, maybe a 1, but not much. But it's mainly in this area, to be honest. And let's see, South Carolina, possibility of 1. You're going to get far more tornadoes coming in on land, not waterspouts, but on land throughout the Florida Peninsula as well. So that is something new, and this kind of area here might see it. Okay, and I'm going to just touch on things this time. Hopefully that helps. Hurricanes. This picture is actually from Wikipedia, but it's been downloaded and used. The background image is from NASA, and tracking details from the NOAA. So as you can see, there were quite a few here, and I believe I got a few right, I'm afraid. But we're going to see a far more aggressive season than I'm seeing anyway. I just wanted to show you this one. And we're going to go back now to actually the Google World, and I'll show you what I see from this point, but in Google World, so I don't want you to memorize this. This is from this year's, okay? Hello, and we're into hurricanes here, the second portion. And even though there are hurricanes, there's going to be a lot more tropical depressions. So it kind of a startup as if it's winding, and it kind of cools down. I will say at this point, I try and do it if I get time, and I find it's going to impact the coast of a country. I'll try and do it more with the typhoons. I haven't done that, but and that's really in Asia/Pacific. But what I'd like you to know is that I will try and do a quick view of where I see it, and I did that briefly with one of the hurricanes. So moving on here, when the hurricanes, we're going to see a few more hurricanes on, let's just cover this portion here. I'm going to turn the world around. Ooh, the power I have. Okay, Here we go. So basically, I'm going to use this, and we're going to really see that there are going to be 12 strong storms. And they are really coming in, obviously, from here and Sierra Leone, all the way from Africa down the coast. There's one that's coming in. I'm not going to give you every one of them. I'm just going to give you the significant ones. There's one that's coming in from here and actually below that. And I'm going to bring this up a bit. Oops. Sorry. That's better. So basically, it's going to come in from here and then meander, and it goes to a HC category 1. It develops a category 1 to 2, crosses to that Cuba, and it goes throughout. It looks as if it's heading straight to Louisiana or Houston, but it actually loses wind, and it gains to a near 3, crosses Cuba this way, and then goes through on. And it touches down really like a tropical storm, but barely a 1. Okay, then there's others that are coming in that start up and then come in and meander, and they're going in to the Gold Coast in there as well. But that one is probably an F2, sorry, F2. What's it? Hurricane level 2. Now I've got to mess that up. But basically, I apologize. Anyway, that's a number 2. Then there is one coming in, and that is going to be, it looks as if it's really slow and slow and slow and building up, and it looks as if it's going to touch Puerto Rico, these islands here, and it kind of looks as if it's going to hit the Florida Keys, Miami, in that spot there. I'm sorry, I apologize. I'm sorry, I had a short break there. The camera was moving too much. Anyway, basically it comes in and it's really slow, but it's pegged to be quite a dangerous one. I'm seeing it run about end of July into August. The states are heating up really big time, easily by August, and you're seeing extreme heat, and that's driving it as well. So you're seeing, and all of this area too, high heat levels. But anyway, it comes in very slowly, and it's coming in and crossing over to Puerto Rico and coming through, and it really brushes, even though it looks like even here it gets to be a 3 to 4. And then for some reason it loses power. It goes and swirls and kind of sits there for maybe a day, which is unusual, and then really loses steam, but it still hits the edge of Miami, and this whole area is affected. And it goes down to a hurricane, let's see, it'll be a 2 by that time. But then it goes into, it still is a 1.5 to 2, but it goes into this area here. So you're going to see, while not coastal flooding there is, but it's a really tropical storm. It gets downgraded when it hits, but it could be as much as a 1 off the coast of Houston. Okay, and that's just one of them. Then there's, well, the others we'll talk about. You're going to really experience about 3 significant storms, and they're not necessarily tropical storms, but hurricanes that are going to be more in, and I'm just going to get closer here. Sorry. Go here into this coast for the North and South Carolina, Virginia actually, and you're going to see hurricanes coming in where they're hugging 3 significant ones. There are going to be a lot more. Could be as much as 22. But with a total of all the others, it could be 35 with the tropical storms. So we're looking at coming in, and it's hugging, and then it hits South Carolina, one of them, and it hits like an category 2, into South Carolina, and really makes some damage into the coastline here. and goes into West Virginia, travels into Virginia, that tip, Kentucky. It's like a huge storm that's coming in right there. And it's as if it's like a bubble there, but really bad weather, torrential rains, flooding. So be careful, make sure. Even I see hail as part of the storm, so that's going to be a nasty one. And that's round about 27th of August, kind of 3rd of September, okay? Now there's another one. The other two are coming in, and one comes in from just brushing the Bahamas, and it's not exactly, it's kind of an F2. F, I apologize. Shouldn't do tornadoes with hurricanes because they get mixed up. Anyway, a Cat 2, Category 2 coming in. And it looks as if it's going to head right into South Carolina, but it doesn't. It kind of veers off. But the thing is, it's not just small. It's literally like a loop like that. So it will have impact to North Carolina more and Virginia, because the tropical storm, the excess where it winds down starts coming down like that. It veers off and hits the edge, on the edge of its storm. The track is this way and not really hitting or impacting, but it does hit with the weather system, and if has an effect in Virginia and Washington. New Jersey has a bit, but not as bad as this area here. So it's like a huge loop like that. All right, and that one is an F2. Then the last one, and it's a bit more aggressive. It's as if it's, I know it sounds weird, but it's like a shark attack in the way of it just comes in from below. And let me just pan out here. And it comes in and from here, and it just is very aggressive, and it comes in like this. And some, I see meteorologists say it's going to hit Florida here, but it doesn't. It just is very, it's like a shark attack. It just goes straight and then just suddenly veers, and it looks as if it is, but it veers off and hits this point here and has this whole coast deluged with water, tropical storm. It gets downgraded, and that one is around about in October, late October. There are a few in late November and one in December next year, which is surprising, but there's been different weather systems that are affecting it. But basically, the brutal ones that I'm talking about are coming into the Gulf and coming here and affecting this whole area, the Gulf Coast, and I'm sorry to say Cuba and everything else. There, and the ones for Europe I'll cover later. Okay, overview, and this is from NASA again, a picture via Wikipedia, but basically just to let you know that a lot of people really laugh at me when I say there are hurricanes happening on the west coast of this continental divide, but basically it's sure, just to let you know, there were 21 depressions, total of 21 depressions in 2019. Total storms were 19. Hurricanes, there were 7. Can you see these? There were 7, 4 of which were major, and 2 Cat 5, Category 5s. So just to let you know that before we start talking about the West Coast hurricanes. So we're talking about more the West Coast, and I'm going to pan in a bit more here. And here, a large majority were obviously happening here, but we're going to see that it is far more, and it's more or less splayed out like this towards Hawaii. No, let's have to go in a bit now. All the islands here, so it's really coming into this area, and this spread, where it's this spread like a triangle and going through that way, if you remember the previous bit of video. So basically what I'm seeing is there are going to be 12 hurricanes, but really about 14 depressions, 12 hurricanes, but only 3 of them, possibly 3, definitely 2, that are going to be significant. So that's an F4 to an here we go again, category 4 to category 5 that's going to hit, and it's going to come up here, and it's as if it's really fed by a huge heat up of the ocean here. I don't know what it's called, but anyway, it's literally heat that's being driven, and it's heating up, and it really goes this way and dissipates, but it's out in the ocean. And obviously they're worried about LA and California, but the Gulf Coast too, which is far more susceptible to open to storms, but it comes this way. All right, then there's an F5 that's really coming in, but it loops around and has a nasty like a burst out here, and then kind of slows down to category 2 to 3, but crossing the lower islands of Hawaii there, and then dissipates out here. The rest are really, not exactly, you can't say low level, but it is low level categories 1 and 2, which are really kind of splaying here and coming up. One maybe as far as to tip of Los Angeles, but it's really dissipates to tropical depression by the time it hits anywhere near San Diego or LA. So it's again a lot here, and they're going to be more prominent here than going up. All right, so that's just a quick one. Thank you for joining me. Earthquake activity in America. So basically, again, I haven't checked, but what's really going to happen is far more on the left-hand side here. On the west coast is going to be a bit more active, but it's not so much here. There are going to be outside Long Beach and those areas where, I'll just zoom in there, but LA, California, this area, Salton Sea, is going to be a bit active, so obviously it's going to affect Las Vegas and any of the other cities there. Phoenix will have 2 or 3 small ones, but nothing really to speak of. But the range here is going to get active. Not the big one that I see, and even then I hope I'm wrong in any of these. But you're going to get about 4.5s, maybe even as a 5.9, but that's outside LA and in the deserts, Salton Sea and stuff like that. Sorry. Then back up north, San Francisco will have one that's that might be a larger one, near a 6. So that's a bit disturbing, but that's about 15-20 miles down or something. Then we've got I'll reduce it, Seattle, there's going to be shakers. Around here off the coast you're going to see, because this region here in Canada is going to get far more active. So Seattle, you're going to see far more little shakers, and Portland off the coast here, everything there. Now let's go to, needless to say, the Midwest and fracking. That's going to increase, so that you're going to get far more, not exactly double, but at least 1/3 increase of earthquake there. But that's associated probably, and I'm seeing yes, but with fracking. But you're going to see 3.3 to even a 4.5. New York, just outside the city or within the limits in New York. Pennsylvania, Virginia, small ones. So you're going to see it kind of, again, as I always say, on an H, a soft H, because it's just really not as active as this area here. And Las Vegas a tiny bit, and even Nevada here, this area here, because of California, is being affected. Okay, and that's that, but I'll cover I might as well cover here, but in Mexico, let's go down into South America. And basically, this one is going to be a 6.5. There's going to be quite a few here, for anything from 6.5 to 3s and 2s. But same with Mexico City. But really, it's about round about here. I don't know what that is, but basically here, you're going to see more inland, and that's going to be a 7.2. So sorry, not Mexico City, but yeah, it's about here, 7.2. And all the other countries, I hate to say, are going to suffer the same, and even more so on Haiti. All of them have the constant earthquakes, which are prevalent. And I said, I'm afraid, which came true. Chile had a large one too. But you are going to get far more, like a 7.2 to 3, anything from 6.9, and there are shakers down here as well, and inland to Argentina, Brazil, and Bolivia. I'm not too sure if they really are interested in that. I just thought I'd add it. Okay, thank you. Just on a side point is Alaska. I know they get, some of the people get annoyed because I don't touch it, but Hawaii and Alaska, I'm sorry, but you are going to be, there's going to be a lot more earthquakes, more prevalent here and in, let's try and see if I can go in, to Ketna, Anchorage, but it's really here, and there's far more volcanoes getting a bit more active. Even though they've been dormant for about 5 to 10 years, they're going to be a bit more. So just be careful. Their weather is going to be, they hit some ridiculous temperatures this year, where the heat wave and obviously snow and other things are not the normal weather patterns that they've had. But you are going to start hitting, I think the high temperature is going to be about 92 at one stage, but basically your weather is changing. That means there are other things that are changing within the planet, hence also the volcanoes activity as well. But I'm more worried about the wildlife as well too, trying to adjust with this new temperature change. So basically, you're going to have a lot more different summer weather, and on winter you are going to be affected by polar vortexes, but it's mostly, funnily enough, that way, not so much this way, but that way, that you're going to get the extreme temperature shattering cold that's coming in, when I talked about snow and blizzards. Hopefully that helps you. And as for Hawaii, let me just scroll down to that. And Hawaii, I talked about hurricanes and things like that, but basically you are going to get hit with the possibility of a tsunami from an earthquake coming in from, I believe, Japan, but up around that region. So you are going to get hit with a tsunami, but the tsunami is only going to be a few feet, maybe as much as 5 to 10, but nothing catastrophic. And it's really, obviously, the islands here on that coast, the west coast, but just be careful. You're going to have about impactful of 3 to 4 really brutal storms in the summer. They seem like monsoons, but they seem to be far more brutal. Okay? I'm going to touch on volcanoes here, and I believe a few of the ones that I did say, I haven't got time to check all the predictions, needless to say, but I believe they did go. And I'm seeing 2 new volcanoes that have been dormant for about, one is about 20, 25 years, and the other one for a few hundred has come active. And that's more scary in that. And I do see more activity in Finland, Norway, in some of the volcanoes there. Alaska, needless to say, is going to be a bit more active. And I'll talk about earthquakes later because that's associated with it. And of course, around Italy and Greece, those did go active earthquakes too. So I am seeing Mount Vesuvius actually getting a bit more active, but that's in late July, August. Be careful. And there are other islands obviously going active, the volcanoes. So it's as if there's a disturbance or there's more activity, earthquake activity that's going on that is actually contributing to a far more deeper disturbance with the volcanoes. All right? Fires. Now, unfortunately, when I went through all the fires, we had a devastating year again on fires throughout. I was trying to find a map of all the total fires, but it was just overwhelming. So obviously that's going to be your research, not mine. But basically what I had said was I see that the National Guard was going to help fight quite a few of the fires, and unfortunately they did. I saw in Yellowstone, and there were quite a few there throughout the year. Washington State 1 to 2, Montana, Oregon, California throughout, including Yosemite National Park, Encinitas, Carlsbad, Arizona, Las Vegas, Utah, but outside. I don't know about Las Vegas. I have to check on that one. But Utah, there was. Actually, there was one in Las Vegas. Colorado at the Dust Bowl. I don't know about that there. I believe there were low-level fires. Florida, yes, several in November too. Texas, 5 to 8, and 4 large fires in November, on the 25th. Missouri, Virginia, New York, upstate. So all of those that I'd predicted unfortunately did come true, but we're going to see a different level. We are going to see fires because of so much devastation. And this is high heat. I'll put the fires in here, the heat with the fires here, because we are going to exceed high heat levels and break records. And it'll be mostly from August through actually in through September, where it doesn't, and even November. There are certain days that are going to come in early November. So we are going to have a bit of an Indian summer, not as much. But the fires, going back to that, which are kind of obviously the heat's going to spur it. And I'm seeing in Oregon, Washington here, Oregon, Idaho a bit, a tiny 1 or 2 in Montana, Wyoming, in Yellowstone, Nevada, more in the hills, in the mountains. Along this coast, I hate to say it, I'm seeing a lot of fires. But they're not as huge or utterly devastating, even though, to be honest, the past fires have more or less taken out the brush anyway. But there are fires around California, and that's really July and August and September. You may see some in the end of May. So watch it. Phoenix, Tucson, New Mexico a bit. In Texas, there are fires, but this is pertaining to other situations as well. Kansas, Georgia, Alabama a bit. Florida, there are a few fires. Carolinas, 1, 2, Virginia a bit. So it goes through New York, I'm seeing a bit. But I hate to say it, but these are carelessness, lightning strikes, things like that. Okay, I'm not going to spend too much time on this, sorry. I know a lot of people may get bored with too much information. Thank you, bye-bye. Additionally, on fire, I would like to say that if you feel that I have been accurate or that there is a danger where you are because of the hills around you, may I suggest that you do be proactive, and that's all these videos are for, the predictions are for. Be proactive, and then go and put away cherished memories, ornaments, or whatever it is Okay, we're covering haboobs and dust storms here, and I had predicted massive sandstorms in Las Vegas. There was a small one actually only in April and July, throughout in September haboobs as well. Small town outside, about 1 hour I had said, but that's July, August. Arizona, yes, there was in August. So what I'm seeing again, Arizona seems to be getting prone to haboobs, but there's going to be a big one right about July, end of July in there, and even a small one in New Mexico. Las Vegas, there is going to be a bad dust storm, and dust storms are going to be prevalent more or less by throughout, on and off, but not, there's one severe one coming in middle to late August in Las Vegas, but it's really throughout Nevada. The winds are going to get higher, and there are going to be dust devils, which are like tornadoes. To be honest, it's pretty. And one probable tornado, EF 0 to EF 1, in a town just outside Las Vegas, maybe just about an hour away, but that's going to happen mid-year, okay? But the haboobs are really going to be, and the dust storms are going to be here. There are going to be dust storms, surprisingly, in Austin, and it kind of continues into, it's some kind of weird system going into Houston as well. And there are high winds in here too, in this area, like the Dust Bowl. So be careful of that. Then there, I might as well cover water spouts in here as well, and I'll do that on the next section. We're talking about terrorist activity, and it kind of goes under really riots as well, and mass shootings, but let's go into the terrorist activity. And I saw 2 attacks in San Francisco, lone wolf. I don't know if that happened, I don't know, but Los Angeles, I know there were several in California and Los Angeles as well. Texas, there were. Washington, racial, random acts of racism in the Midwest to Southern, where the KKK and the racist groups there. Late September, October, November, horrible attacks and meaningless. Chicago, Detroit, racial riots too, which I said, and of course that in the summer that was quite explosive and horrible. There were several episodes of that in Chicago. So those unfortunately came true. So riots come under the same thing, where I said there were going to be a lot of riots in there in protest, not only about elections on the different sides on, against the incumbent president, but also other riots about race and everything else in southern states. That all came true. Chicago, race riots were there, and I just talked about that. So let's go to this year. The mass shootings, by the way, I'll cover in a bit later on this one. But basically, I'm seeing again 2 in Texas. They're going to up the game, I'm afraid. It's not going to go down. We're going to see far more attacks and random acts of violence, and not a random, but they are planned, and there's cells, and there are the Taliban coming in as well, a bit more strongly this year, as well as all the other groups, I'm afraid, that are against America. So not to be paranoid, but it's just going to be more in Washington, New York, and Texas is a big one, I'm afraid. California, there's going to be, probably, I don't know if I should even say it. I hope I'm wrong, and I'm really happy when I am wrong. One in the airport, a small one, disturbance. Okay, but they do catch him. 3 in Florida and Kansas, and even in Washington, Portland, Phoenix, but it's really in Texas is the large majority, in California and Texas. and they're spread around. Then there's mass shootings, which, I hate covering, but I had said more school shootings. Unfortunately, there were in near the Pentagon, but I don't think that happened. I'm not sure. In Texas, there was, and where I said New York, California, Las Vegas. I don't know about Las Vegas, but there were shootings anyway. There was always shootings there. Arizona, yes, and Montana, a small one, 2 people hurt. So there were things that I had said, unfortunately, that had happened. But there will be more mass shootings, but these are children, shooting children, and they're teenagers, anything from even an 8-year-old I see to upwards through college, university. And how they're getting guns, I don't know. But anyway, it's not necessarily a gun either. I'm seeing knife attacks. There are 2 bombings as well, and I'm seeing more in Washington and one outside in another state. So it's just beware, be warned, be proactive, know what your instincts are going to be. And it doesn't mean to say hate everybody. That's stupid, because you're letting them win, ISIS and the Taliban. But that's exactly what they want to do, is to create fear. And if you're going to accept that as part of your persona, they've won, not you, not us. So just be aware. And I've said this a few times. Grew up in England, and we had to, unfortunately, there were a lot of IRA bombings and other things going on, and we kind of, it sounds awful, but we got used to it. But just be aware of your surroundings, okay? Anyway, good luck, and just keep safe out there, and hope you find this helpful. On the issue of politics in America, I'm just going to briefly do this. I actually did a radio show, and it's online. Actually, it's on the YouTube. And I did cover a bit of the politics. But what I'm more worried about are the riots and the racist activity, which is growing, just as if we're regressing back into the 50s and 60s, where it's getting far more violent and clashes. So it's being propagated by certain groups, which I hate to see. But you need to realize that you need to stay independent and try and not be fully on one side or the other, and try and walk the middle line. There's always 3 sides to the story, and that's his, hers, and the truth kind of thing. But an older adage, but basically try and be a bit more, back off from the, how can I say that, the magnifying glass, and then you'll see a bit of a truer picture. But yes, there are definite wrongs going on, but there are other ways also to contend with it, deal with it, and show it. But other than obviously voting, but you have your say. And I'm just saying, be an informed voter, and know what's going on. Don't always believe what's going on in the press, or what you're being fed by blogs and things like that, because that's a person's opinion. Okay? Thank you. I'm just going to quickly touch on North Korea here. And this is something that I see that he is going to up the game by end of February. And he'll be testing the missiles. And he's testing, but he is going to be close. Still in international waters, to be honest. But I am seeing that he is going to try and get close to, not exactly Washington, but he is going to be around here, where he's trying to scare us more, and then try and be a bit more threatening, but not. And it's his way of trying to, it's really about here, to be honest, that he starts to cross over that. and section, so it's as if it's crying wolf, not crying wolf, but playing chicken here, and he's getting closer. So he'll be a bit more active this year. Sorry, this year, and unfortunately, there's something wrong with him in the way of, I think, like a mental problem. Sorry, that he's getting to be more paranoid, if that's possible. So there's going to be a lot more internally in his cabinet, that there's going to be a lot more firings, and, well, not firings, but murder for him. He just gets rid of them. So it's pretty sad where he's going, but that's his choice. Unfortunately, is the poor people there that have no rights that I'm worried about. Anyway, that's enough of that. Thank you. Just to cover on the flu is going to be a bit more brutal. A lot more people, sadly, flu/pneumonia, are going to be dying from it in the way of they're not realizing it or catching it in time. So please look up the symptoms for both flu and pneumonia. Don't get paranoid, but especially for older people and children, you have to be careful. Don't let it, and if you just intuitionally feel that they're just passing you on and saying, oh, you'll be okay, go and see somebody else. Follow your intuition. Again, don't be paranoid, but it is going to be an aggressive flu season, and it will last until end of June into July, this flu season. So don't think it's just over. So if you are going out, and you have to be obviously food shopping or whatever, and people are sneezing, either wear a mask. If you don't want to do that, please take some vitamins, or even make sure you wash your hands thoroughly, and just don't touch your nose or your eyes and things like that. Just basic health, I'm sure you know about it. Thank you.